Huh? She's not on yet, but I'll watch for her.
I'd like to call to order our June 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Regional Planning Commission. I'd like to just let everybody know for the record that this meeting is being recorded. We'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone can stand.
The Republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
We have people in the audience and then people attending on the computer as well, as you can see by the screen. If we could just ask that those who are attending by the computer just mute their microphones so that we don't get that background noise. And then if you'd like to comment at the appropriate time, if you could use the little raise your hand button, and Betty will be watching. So we're going to begin with just a little statement. All times on the agenda are approximate. Consideration of items may require more or less time than is scheduled. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine 2 or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Public comment is designated for discussion only. The public has the opportunity to address the commission on any matter not appearing on the agenda. However, no action may be taken on matter raised until the matter itself has been specifically included on the agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Additionally, public comment may be heard on any item listed on the agenda. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and/or attend and make comments on any agenda item at the commission meeting. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person at the discretion of the commission. At this time, we'd like to review, correct, and approve the minutes of our May 13th, 2021 regular meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review and look at those minutes? Okay.
I would move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so our minutes have been approved from the May meeting. We will move down to requests for postponement of agenda items.
I've not received any.
Okay, great. On to our consent agenda portion of the meeting. Here we have 2 items, item A and item B. Item A is SN-21-08, a request to reserve a street name received from Chris Pfizer to name an existing 30-foot wide easement within section 35 T36N R35E, assessors parcel numbers 05-0353-12, 13, 14, and 15. Betty, I think you may have some comments you wanted to read into the record.
I actually would like to pull this one down if we could, so you can move on to the next one if you want, and the board can approve that.
Okay, great. All right, so on to item B. This is SN 21-09, a request to reserve a street name received from Daniel Watson to name an existing 30-foot wide easement within section 35 T25N R36E, assessors parcel numbers 05-0591-07, 15, 23, 31, 39, 47, 55, 63, 22, 30, 38, 46, 54, and 62. Proposed name is Shawnee Road. Any discussion, possible action?
I'd move that we vote to approve it. I don't see any problem with it. I don't see that the existing tenants in the area have any problem with it, so.
Kevin, you need to talk into the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Did everybody get that? No. Okay. So I'm saying that we should move to approve this because the residents that are in the area and have been called and notified that this was going to take place don't have a problem with it. So I move that we approve it.
I did have a question about this one. So the applicant proposed Shawnee Road and Bobcat Road. And then there was a comment suggesting that we just use Bobcat Road as that kept with more of the character of the area.
And that's, if you guys want to do that, you can.
Okay, so
yeah.
we can just
Mhm.
suggest Bobcat Road?
That's fine.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the item has been approved. We will now, so Betty, when you're pulling that item A down, do you want to just discuss this at the first part of the public hearing then? Okay, so we will now just hear from Betty with item A.
I did receive comments on SN 2108 to name a existing easement from one of the property owners, and I'm going to read it into record. It says, in reference to the letter dated May 5th, 2021, we would like to respectfully propose an alternative to Chris Pfizer name request and intent to put a road along the easements on parcels 0353, 12, 13, 14, and 15. These parcel property lines are all just a few yards north of Jungle Road. BLM gives easements to access properties as well. It seems it would be more practical and cost-effective for Mr. Pfizer to get an easement directly north of Jungle Road as a private driveway to his property. If he were to do that, he could have a Jungle Road address for his property and saves costs of putting in a long road. We ask that that option be considered be a consideration before putting a road along the easement. Mr. Pfizer chooses not to, if he chooses not to get a BLM easement, we would like to suggest another name for the road he will be putting in. We feel Blue Desert Road or Stampede Road would be more fitting names for the area where we will be all residing in the future. Please consider this proposal before making a decision. So after I got that, I did send an email to both Karen Johnson and Don Kalkowski. Karen is in the building department. Mr. Kalkowski is in the public works department. So I asked them, I said, I received the comments. There is a 30-foot easement. That's the purpose of the 30-foot easement, is to give access to those parcels out there. If he were to come from Jungle Road, he not only would have to get a permit from BLM, but he would also have to get a permit from the road department. And they did show a map where they were proposing actually 3 entrances up into that section for those other people, property owners, to use. Karen responded that my assessment, it's a legal easement. They don't need to get the BLM access. That's why the easement's put on those parcels. And then Mr. Kalkowski just verified that, yes, they would need to get a road permit and from the BLM. So and they were good with either name that Mr. Pfizer proposed. He proposed Pfizer Road or Getaway Road. So the street naming committee, which is kind of me, is recommending Getaway Road because it's not Pfizer Road after him.
Okay, so are there any questions for staff related to this item? I mean, I do kind of have a question. I mean, can there be multiple named roads or easements around the areas?
There will, because each parcel has an easement around it. So this would be running east to west or west to east. And then if somebody were to develop or wanted to develop going north, then they would have to name that easement. And then any in between as that gets developed out in that area. So either way, somebody's going to have to come in. These people are right on the corner where it meets Jungle Road. People are going to be using the easement that runs north and south. So we may as well just keep it, consistent as we've done in the past and not make these people have to go through BLM and the road department to get, because that costs money also.
Right, yeah. Since this got moved down into our public hearing, I don't know if the applicant is in the audience related to this
No.
item? No? Okay, so no applicant. The board have any questions? No?
I'm so confused. Are you suggesting that we look at what was written or that we talk about?
We're recommending Getaway Road,
Okay.
not Pfizer Road.
But to stay with the easements as they were
Yes.
described here.
Yes.
Okay, I was very confused.
I'm sorry. It is confusing.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment about this street name change from the easement to Getaway Road? Anybody have any comments? Anybody on the computer? Okay, not seeing any. I will bring this back to the board for a motion. Someone would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve parcel number SN, approval of SN 21-08, the name of Getaway Road.
I'll second that motion. Okay, moving on, we will proceed with RW-21-06. This is a zone change application received from Andrew Lindsay and David Walton to change the E estate zoning designation to R2 multiple family residential on property located south of Hardgrave Lane and east of Highland Drive. Assessor's parcel number 16-0331-04. Anyone have questions for the staff on this item?
And just to remind you, before you, when you make a motion, this is a recommendation to the city council.
So on the last meeting, were they same people, just different?
No,
No.
that was a different, that was the county, actually.
Okay.
So if there are no questions related to this item, I'd entertain a motion.
It's a public hearing
Oh,
item, so,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, all right, sorry. Yes, so there is a comment from the audience. Would you like to come up to the table and please state your name for the record and then? Yeah, just right here. Thank you.
My name's Casey Harrison. We've lived in that area for 37 years. We didn't get any information until very late in the game. I would propose another meeting with these folks so that we can at least understand what they're undertaking there. And also, I would propose a Spanish language translator, because if it's what I think it is, there's a trailer park up there. There's a lot of people living there, and I think we need to get the word out.
They were notified. Every person in that trailer park was notified.
Except us.
Your name didn't pop up
My
as,
name didn't?
no.
Isn't that strange? I lived there for 37 years and my name didn't pop up. I'm still living there.
Yeah, I pulled the mobile home personal property records and your name did not come up.
Well, we've been living there for 37 years. We've been paying rent for 37 years. I would suggest that someone investigate that before we go any further.
That would be something to take up with the assessor's office,
Okay?
because I did do notification per requirement. I'm not sure what you think they're going to do. They've asked to change the zoning to an R2, which would allow them to have duplexes that are similar to what's on Buckaroo Court off of Highland Drive.
Yes, but the problem, well, anyway, I would suggest we address this at a different time because there are some economic hurdles trying to find out how much it would be to get into these new accommodations.
Actually, that road is being developed by the city.
By the city.
Yes.
So I need to get a hold of whom?
Hardgrave is going to be developed by the city.
Okay, so I need to contact someone in the city to get information
As to,
what the hell is going on there.
well, Hardgrave runs from Highland Drive all the way through and it'll connect to where the Boys and Girls Club is through
I'm
there.
aware of that. We live on that road.
Yeah.
Okay, well, So we'll contact the city, and maybe we could have a neighborhood meeting with a Spanish translator and get everybody informed there as to what's going on.
Yeah, I sent notices to every person except you because you didn't come up. What's your address?
4037 North Estate Road, Winnemucca, Nevada, 89445. That's the address. And would you like my post office box as well? I would certainly appreciate any efforts you could take to,
Okay.
because no one's informed.
Well, they were notified.
They were notified of the meeting, but the meeting was to inform us as to what.
So 4037 came up as Keith or Patricia Harrison.
That's us.
Yeah, a notice was sent to you.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Now it went to the physical address. Well, let me look here really quick. 40, what's your mobile home number?
4037 North Estate Road.
2647.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, then these folks would have to change accommodations if this is followed through.
What do you mean accommodation?
No, so can I address the question?
Sure.
So what's happening is they're wanting to rezone. So right now the zoning just allows for like single family dwellings.
Uh-huh.
And so what they're wanting to do is rezone so that they could build a duplex, which would be, two families together. So similar to like what Betty said, that's on Buckaroo Court. So we really wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood at all. It would just allow, for some more residential development along that area, which.
Okay.
And it
but
doesn't affect the mobile home park. It's only on the parcel that they own.
the parcel that they.
Yes, yeah, so it's back behind you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, does that answer your questions?
I certainly hope so.
So,
Okay, thanks you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it went to your PO box.
Went to our PO box.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to address this item? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend that the Winnemucca City Council approve staff report RW 2106 as presented per staff recommendation with the following findings pursuant to Winnemucca Municipal Code 171208. There's no information to indicate this action will be detrimental to properties surrounding or adjacent to the area, and this zone change will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. The motion pass. Oh, actually, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. The motion passes. We will move on to item B, UH-21-05. This is a conditional use permit application submitted by Robert Ringo on behalf of Tiger Preservation Center, Nevada, to allow a rescue and rehabilitation facility for exotic animals, including but not limited to all big cat species, canid species such as wolf dogs, prosimian species such as lemurs, injured wildlife. Subject property is located east of Pine Road, north of Cormier Road, assessor's parcel number 14-0201-11, 12, 13, and 14. This is for discussion and possible action. I know, Betty, you have some comments that you'd like to read into the record, and Wendy, I think you wanted to address this as well.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. We have a lot of people here, so I just wanted to briefly talk about public comment. You're all going to have the opportunity to speak. As the chairperson stated, public comment is typically no longer than 3 minutes. You can't trade your time to others or give people your time, and so they have additional time. There's also no need to be redundant. I know a lot of you spoke, or maybe not a lot of you, because there looks like there's a lot more here, but some of you spoke at the last meeting. So as this item was tabled, you don't need to repeat those things. The chairperson may put a time limit on public comment during this public hearing portion. She may say that she wants it to be a certain amount of time. I've heard proponents and opponents talk about how different things. So I want to kind of try to address some of those things so that you understand the scope of the Planning Commission. The first thing is I've heard proponents and opponents of this issue talk about that this vote should go to the public. This is an item, the conditional use permit, the board has the authority to hear. So they have the authority to approve or deny a conditional use permit. It doesn't go to the public. I've also read or heard and submitted comments comments have been submitted that talk about licensing, the Wildlife Commission, what other boards or commissions did or didn't do, fines, sanctions, warnings, what happened in other counties, and perhaps bad character and good character. And I'm sure I'm missing some there, but I just want to be very clear. Legally, this board cannot consider any of those things. I hope all of you have in front of you, hopefully it was on your seat, there is, oh, sorry, they're up here, so let me grab them.
Would you like to, yes, would you like to sign in? If there's anybody who hasn't signed in, if you could please sign in for us.
Some of those
So
people
you
can
may
probably
have,
share.
you may have to share. So there's criteria for approval. I want to point you in the direction of 17.68.090 that's on some of those handouts. And essentially this talks about what the board can consider. So since I've told you some things they cannot consider, I'd like all of you to take a look at this and to try if you can. I can't prevent you from saying anything that you want, so please feel free to say whatever you'd like. I'm just suggesting that it would be helpful to this board if you could look at these items, their criteria for approval, and try to tailor your comments as to why you believe this conditional use permit is appropriate or not appropriate pursuant to those criteria for approval. I also want to comment on the Ag General District, which is codified in 17.20 of the Humboldt County Code. That talks about permitted uses, conditional uses, and prohibited uses. This item, so essentially, if it's not specifically listed as a conditional use, historically, the Planning Commission, if it's not prohibited, it comes before the board, regardless of whether it's a similar use, it's conditional use or not. As long as it's not prohibited, this board has the authority to hear the application and to make the decision. So just because something's not specifically listed as a conditional use in the code does not mean that a CUP cannot be granted. In this case, use of the property as a tiger big cat preservation facility is not specifically prohibited, so the board has the authority, subject to meeting the criteria for approval, to grant or deny the proposed use. And the last thing I want to comment on is there's a staff report that is attached to the agendas that's found on the website. And as the board knows, agendas have to be posted by 9 a.m. at least 3 working days prior to a meeting so that we are in compliance with open meeting law. Ms. Lawrence often posts more than 3 days before a meeting so the public has ample time to review. The Planning Commission is well aware that something may be posted in a staff report as denying and or recommending approval, and something may come in after posting but prior to the meeting, and a recommendation may change. The intent of the staff report is to provide the board and the public with information and understand the criteria for approval in the CUP or zoning or whatever the process is that's at issue. The fact that staff recommends approval or denial does not mean that the board must follow staff's recommendations. The board is free to make whatever decision they want, irrespective of what the recommendation of staff is. The last thing I want to point out to you is within that code and the criteria for approval, subsection E talks about the applicant for a conditional use permit shall have the burden of proof by a preponderance of the evidence to provide facts supporting the proposed conditional use permit. And I believe that's all I have for you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you for that information. Since we have,
I need to do
okay,
my-
yes, we're going to have Betty read into the record what she's received.
So I'm going to read one that I received from Tori Sheen, who is the rural fire chief, and Kevin Malone, he's the undersheriff for Humboldt County. And then I'm going to read just a summary of comments that I received from property owners because pretty much everybody had the same thing to say. We'd be here till 10 o'clock if I read every one of these into the record. So I have them in my file. If you would like a copy, I'm more than willing to send them to you. The board has received all of them except one, and the comments were basically the same as all the other ones that I have forwarded to you. So Tori Sheen said he didn't have a problem with this. There's minimal fire hazard. Access to all the parcels out there is pretty poor, and that is his only concern. And he signed it Tori Sheen, WRFD. Kevin Malone, he actually sent this to Laura Vinson with a CC to myself, Wendy Maddox, and Bonnie Ringo. We have a system called Alert Sense that we can send emergency notifications out on. So yes, we have the ability. I would highly encourage the Ringos to meet with us prior to housing any such animals so that we can all be on the same page and understand each other's capabilities and responsibilities. I would also suggest that members of the Nevada Department of Wildlife and the Nevada Department of Agriculture be there as well. And both of those departments were notified by my office by a request to review for any comments they may have. So that was under Sheriff Malone's comments. So a summary of the comments received by property owners. There was a concern regarding breeding and the reputation of the applicants, the close proximity homes, the safety of the enclosures, the health, safety, welfare of property owners, concern for safety of livestock and domestic animals that these property owners have, marketability of the vacant parcels, applicant vague at the first meeting when questions were asked, they weren't clear answers. Current condition of proposed access, which is Cormier Road, and what would be involved to upgrade that road. Sorry, I have to admit somebody. Emergency service responses. Somebody asked the question if the animals were spayed or neutered. If not, this would allow for potential breeding. Mr. Ringo made a comment when he was asked about fire control at the last meeting that he was planning to take out all the sagebrush and take it down to dirt. So there was some concern about dust control. Somebody did comment about the possible, how this could affect the airport with planes flying in and out. You have 160 acres of dirt blowing in the wind that we have all the time. Also the property owners. If improved, impose restrictions. Some suggestions were the number of animals, the compound cage restrictions, and some people referred to the previous applications that were submitted to Lyon and Pershing County. Mr. Bukal, I hope I'm not butchering your name. This is the Ringo's attorney. He sent a letter, and I'm just going to summarize basically what he put in there. He indicated there were false statements regarding breeding and mistreatment of animals. Misrepresentation is SB 344. Specifically, he referred to the portion of the bill which did pass that provided that a person shall not allow a dangerous animal to come in contact with a member of the public. There was a critical violation referred to by Linda Sugasa from Safe Haven at the meeting last month. And what that violation was that Mrs. Ringo obtained an animal and the health certificate was defective and she was unaware of that. So the USDA fined them for a violation. There's an established donor base. Mr. Bukal would like me to maintain communications from Mrs. Sugasa and other, both oral and written, for use in potential litigation. And it should be recognized that the Ringos have a fine record for caring for cast-off animals. And as I indicated, if anybody would like copies, I have them. I can scan them and email them to you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, does the board have any question for staff since we have an updated and an amended staff report? Anybody? Betty, I did kind of have a question about just the county's master plan for that area. Could you describe what the master plan is?
The master plan for that area is actually industrial, and I believe the properties to the west actually have a low or medium density residential zoning, but properties that are closer to the airport are master plan industrial, because I believe at some point with airport expansion, that would allow for that. So yeah, it's industrial.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present, or Mr. Bukal, you're maybe representing the applicant? I don't know if the Ringos are present.
I believe Mr. Ringo is on the line.
Mr. Ringo, okay, so we're going to just open the floor to the applicant and let them, since there is some updated information, you provided us with some new things since our last meeting, just we'd like to hear from the applicant at this point.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, if you could just state your name for the record. Some people are just showing up with phone numbers. So,
Okay.
Yes.
This is Robert Ringo. And there was a statement made just a minute ago by Betty that said we were fined by the USDA. We were not fined or reprimanded for that. It was just something made the wrong record and gave it to us. There was no fine involved and no black mark on our record, period.
Mr. Ringo, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yes. They also said that, you know, I did say last month that I was going to take all the sagebrush down, but I didn't continue on with what I was going to do in its place. I plan on planting a lot of trees, and I plan on planting permanent pasture for the horses that we have and other hoof stock.
Okay, anything else that you'd like to just add for us, the board, with this new updated and amended report? If not, I'm going to just open up the floor to the public. Again, we're going to take public comments. I'm going to ask that you can keep your comments to 3 minutes. We're going to start with those that are here on the computer, and we'll move through from the computer to those that are in the audience. If you have a question for Mr. Ringo or Mr. Bukal, if you could just ask your question and then allow them to respond. And again, keep that to a 3-minute time period.
Are you going to do the computer first?
Yes, the computer first. Yes. Okay, so and if you're ready, if you'd like to address the board and the audience from the computer, if you could please raise your hand and we'll call on you.
Some people are calling in, so they can't raise.
Okay. All right. Okay, so go ahead. Whoever is the 2287. Or, oh, Mr. Harrison, I see your hand. We'll go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name's Tim Harrison. I'm a retired police officer, firefighter, paramedic for the city of Dayton, near Dayton, Ohio. And I'm also a current and adjunct instructor for a very major training facility for disasters in Texas that is FEMA and Homeland Security funded. I'm also director of Outreach for Animals, where police officers, firefighters, paramedics, public safety officers that all have run into these exotic animals over the years. I actually responded to the Zanesville massacre in Ohio. Now, Ohio had a lot of problems. We got to the point we don't allow people to bring these animals back in our state because we ended up having a lot of people bringing in their what we call roadside zoos, not credited facilities, and we ended up having problems. As you know, at the Zanesville massacre, the gentleman had either 56 of the most dangerous creatures, 38 big cats turned loose into the city or escaped. And we ended up having to shoot and kill 38 big cats. The rest were grizzly bear, black bears. And we just want to make sure we travel the country and try to make sure people understand you don't need this in your community. Now, police officers are always the first ones on the scene. Public safety will always be the first ones on the scene. It's not if the owner has to call for public safety, you know there's a problem, and that's what usually happens. And police officers around the country, nobody is trained to do this. There's no police academy. There's no training how to handle a 50 caliber rifle to take down a tiger. Now, I want to also bring up to you real quick here for about 3 minutes is public safety is my specialty. And I want people to understand that these animals, once they do get out, if it's a natural or man-made disaster, see, that's what your police chief and fire chief are forgetting about. If a tree falls, a truck accidentally runs into a fence, something happens and the cats get out, what's the pre-plan? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to those cats? What's going to happen to the people in the community? I can tell you right now, in Licking County in Ohio, where Zanesville was, they almost went bankrupt over theirs. So I want you to understand the financial part of it, but also understand the fear the people had in that community when those animals were loose. It was shut down for months after that because they weren't sure they got all the animals. Now, also, too, I want you to think the San Francisco Zoo had a tiger, Tatiana, escaped. That's accredited AZA zoo. Escaped, killed one boy, and seriously injured two. Now, if they can't house big cats properly, the AZA accredited facilities, I'm a little leery of just individuals, private individuals that have these animals without accreditation from some major organization. And I want people to remember too, always think of safety first. Think of the safety of the people and the animals. It's always a situation where, you know, people always say, is this a tiger problem? No, it's a people problem. It's not a tiger problem because the tigers don't want to be there in the first place. But if you're going to have the facility in your area, please understand these things will come up. There is going to be incidents. And I know this from 47 years of working in this business with dangerous wild exotic animals, starting off working for a zoo vet at 16 years old. There is going to be problems. When people say there's no problems working with big cats, there is going to be problems. So
Thank you,
just
Mr.
remember what I'm
Harrison.
telling you.
I appreciate it. We need to move on.
All right,
So
thank you so much.
Thank you. Who's the next person that would like to comment here? Betty, I don't know if
I'd
you want
like
to
to comment.
calling on them if you can see their numbers
Laura-
better than me.
Can you hear me? This is Laura Vincent. I'd like to comment.
Yes, Laura
Hello?
Vincent, for the record.
Yes, thank you. In response to the speaker who just spoke, I wanted to let you guys know I went to the PETA website and looked up the statistics for animal escapes. I didn't look at what happened inside the facility with workers. I only looked at animals that escaped facilities. I did not look at zoos. I looked at only sanctuaries. This is a sanctuary. It's not a roadside zoo. It's not a zoo. It's a sanctuary that's on 160 acres, which is large enough that it will keep it away from people's homes. But between 2009 and 2013, that's a 5-year period, there were 8 escapes from sanctuaries in the entire U.S., and only one of those resulted in injury, and none of those resulted in death. So I played with those statistics, and I compared it to the risk of getting COVID. So the number of COVID cases currently versus the population, 10 out of every 100 people could get COVID, which is more dangerous than the risk of escape by one of the Ringo's animals. And there's never been an escape from their facility. There's inner cages and outer fencing. And then the other thing I found was that you are 140 times more likely to be bitten by a venomous snake while being struck by lightning than you are to be at risk from one of these animals in their sanctuary. And then I just wanted to also emphasize the fact that this is not a roadside zoo. It's not a prohibited use. They're not going to be impacting the traffic. They're going to be improving the area. They're going to be bringing power to the site. They're going to be creating the roads for the site. They're going to be a positive addition to the area. They are not going to be a detriment or a deterrent. And the reason they're not accredited by the major organization that was mentioned is because this organization is, this was mentioned by Linda, who, by the way, I reached out to her, Linda at Safe Haven, in the spirit of cooperation and kindness to ask what the Ringos could do to better help her understand their mission and how they operate so they could be cooperating with each other. They wanted to invite her to see for herself what they do in their facility. I didn't even get that far because she didn't want to talk to me about it. She slandered the Ringos by stating they were breeders, that they bred like tigers, that had a bad reputation, but I let her know that that wasn't true. And it's just clear that this organization that does this accreditation, it's called BCS. It's actually Carol Baskin's organization. And their method of cornering the market on donors is by slandering these other sanctuaries and rescue organizations who do not wish to provide their donor lists to become members. And they've got these lies without the Ringos that they're perpetuating.
I appreciate your comments. We're already at 3 minutes and we need to move on. We have a lot of people here in the audience that we need to get to.
Thank you for the time.
We take our next person on the computer.
It's Rendell Miller, I believe, has his hand up.
Okay, Rendell?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to touch on a couple of things. It was brought up about roads. There's quite a few different routes that can be used to access the property. In between most of the blocks of parcels out in that area, there are dedicated roadway easements. Ringos are aware they will need to either use an existing roadway or cut in the driveway down one of the many roadway easements with property and gravel it. This is not an issue for the board to have access. Flooding. Like every other property in the valley, this property can have some standing water. Property will get muddy. It's very likely the entire property will ever be underwater. I've never seen it underwater completely. Addressing any grading issues will be part of developing the land. This is a non-issue for the board. Obviously, they do not want to put a house or some other structure underwater. Security and safety, they're under the state and federal guidelines, and that's what they're going to have to abide by. It's what this board imposes may not even reach those standards. It's really a matter of what they have to abide by state and federal standards. I also want to point out, it was brought up that the master plan, this is the industrial property, is animal sanctuary that much worse than having an industrial plant there with termite down the road. I know some of the homeowners had talked about down El Camus had talked about the traffic. Industrial park or industrial buildings can have far more traffic going down there with semis and other vehicles daily. We disagree with it. If I understood correctly, we're talking about the cats not being livestock. I mean, they are livestock in that they are sold and raised for profit by different people. These people are not raising them and breeding them for profit, but I think they would fall under livestock, which is a permitted use under this, what it's zoned for right now. I think the zoning should be Ag 40 though, because it's 40-acre parcels. But it's not just a dog or a cat or a pet bird. These are animals. These are large animals. But I think it is something that falls under livestock, and I disagree with that. Maybe that's something that needs to be taken up on appeal. I don't know. The question for the board is simple in this issue: is it improved use, or is it possible use, or is it not? I mean, really, that's where everything's at. All the safety, all these other concerns can be dealt with. They're easy to deal with, and that's part of the process of getting open and getting things and getting the cats down here is making that process happen. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next person who'd like to speak. Okay, the person with phone number ending in 1585. Go ahead.
That's Linda Vizen again.
Oh, okay, that's all right. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Already spoke.
That's attending by computer? Okay, doesn't sound like it. So we will move to our audience that is here in the building.
I'm attending by phone.
Okay, can you speak up a little bit? We're having a hard time hearing the audio over the computers.
Yes, I'm attending by phone call-in. Does that count in this category?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Ann Harris, for the record, and I am calling in. I listened to the last meeting, and I listened to this one that's going on now. We live on Elk and Herschel, and we are opposed to this sanctuary being put in this location. It's not necessarily only the risk of escape, but there is so much outcry from the public here that is opposed to this that I think that needs to be looked at as well. I have heard last call, at least, the only people that were really for this were people that were the friends of Ringos who had called in, but there was no one who came to the meeting or went on public record like we are right now, that was a majority vote for this. So the fact that most people are against it that are showing up should be something that's taken into consideration by the board as a fact of not wanting this in our community. So I would urge you to vote against this on the basis of the community's wants and needs and the fact that we don't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last time, is there anyone else by internet that would like to speak at this point?
Yeah, my name's Josh. I'd like to speak.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
Josh
Josh, what?
Tochik.
What was it?
I was Josh Tochik.
Hawkins.
Hawkins?
Tochik. T-T-A-C-E-K. Sorry.
I still can't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Josh Tochik.
Could you spell that?
It's P as in Paul, T as in Tom, A as in Apple, C as in Cat, E as in Elk, K as in Kit Kat.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Josh.
I would just like to say I've been working with the Ringos for a little over 5 years, and the couple concerns that I keep hearing, which are obviously good concerns, whether it's breeding, they don't even have the ability to breed. The majority of their animals are female. A lot of them are old and sick. It's not a zoo. Like they're not open to the public. We take care of animals that would die if they didn't have the care that they do. We don't have a large amount of employees. It's also not very big. The gentleman earlier mentioned that he had to shoot 40 some tigers. We don't even have that many there. So it's like the concerns seem good, but then also it seems like a lot of people are stuck on like Joe Exotic and that kind of stuff that obviously put a bad taste in people's mouth for these kind of facilities. They've never had an escape. They've never had a violation, and these tigers don't want to leave. They lay around all day. Like they're pretty lazy, and a lot of them are being rescued back to health. So like they're not aggressive, or like I've seen, Carol Baskins, like she has some aggressive tigers, and other people have aggressive tigers, and people are irresponsible, and that sucks that it put a bad taste in people's mouth. But they've never, if you look at their record, they've never had a violation, never had to escape, and I don't see how they would even have an escape. So that's my piece.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the computer? Okay, if not, we'll just move to the audience that's here in person. And if you could each come to the table when it's your turn, we'll have to figure out how to just kind of orderly come one after the next. State your name for the record, and again, try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, not be redundant if something's already been reiterated a few times, but we would like to hear from you, so thank you.
Hi, my name is Carney Ann Nasser, and I'm a wildlife protection attorney with previous experience as a land use zoning and code compliance attorney. So this is squarely in my wheelhouse, and I've worked with a number of municipalities throughout Nevada on these exact issues. And I'm here to talk about why the RPC can't legally issue this particular CUP. And with all due respect to Josh, I'm holding a critical violation of the Animal Welfare Act in my hand. It wasn't a mistake of paperwork. It was the Ringos and Joe Exotic. Funny that name came up. Now convicted wildlife trafficker Joe Exotic. The case I actually did put together and pitch to the DOJ. So this is all very personal to me because they are the ones who acquired one of those animals and reportedly multiple tigers from Joe Exotic. And this has to do with transferring, i.e. trafficking, an exotic animal across state lines without the necessary paperwork. And a number of the wildlife trafficking crimes for which Joe is now serving his prison sentence relate to exactly that. It's a falsification of paperwork, which is what the Ringos did. There was a creation of a retroactive record. This facility does not meet the standard of a sanctuary. We've all been misled. That word is thrown around. Safe Haven is a wildlife sanctuary. Safe Haven is accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries. It is the highest standard that you can receive. It is not, this facility, Tiger Preservation, is unaccredited, and there's a reason for that, because they don't meet the criteria. They also don't meet the criteria to be considered a rescue under the Captive Wildlife Safety Act, federal law. So it's very misleading for anyone to suggest that this is a sanctuary. It is not. It is a roadside menagerie with a history of dealing with now felon convicted wildlife traffickers. You know, here in the county, there are more restrictions placed on dog owners. You can only have 3 dogs, right? Unless you get special permission. It makes zero sense to your constituents, to your community, to the safety and health of your community to invite in a menagerie of apex predators who are not being kept for and cared for to the same standards that Linda Sugaz's facility is kept to.
Can I interrupt you just? There's someone speaking on the phone, and could you please mute yourself so we can hear the speaker? I believe it's 763-477-1894. Could you please mute yourself? Thank you.
And as you all are aware, the standard for issuance of a CUP is a mandatory standard. The language is shall not. And there's a requirement, there's a burden for the applicant to demonstrate that there shall not be any sort of undue burden for the public health, safety, or general welfare, and they absolutely cannot. If you're doing business with Joe Exotic, if that's okay with you, if that's your standard for who you cohort with, then that speaks volumes. They have not met that standard, and for that reason, if the board issues the permit, there's really ample opportunity for appealing because it just doesn't meet the legal criteria. And I know that there are a lot of animal protection advocates who would want to talk about animal welfare and that sort of thing. I know that's not on the table, that's not the issue. I just wanted to strictly address zoning law here, and this does not meet those criteria.
Thank you. And I don't know, at any point, yes, Mr. Bucol, I was going to ask if the applicant would like to address the comments that were just made.
Yeah, I would like to address the comments that were just made because I think in some sense they're dishonest. Excuse me?
Sir, let me just ask you a question for purposes of the record, okay? This is Wendy Maddox. Are you, I need to make you aware of a rule that I read. You emailed me and I replied to you and I looked up. Are you familiar with Nevada Supreme Court Rule 42?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. As the counsel of record for this matter, I have some responsibilities, and I am responsible for, as it pertains to this, I'm responsible to the court, mediator, administrative agent, or to this governmental body that is subject to this rule for compliance with all state and local rules of practice. It's my responsibility to ensure that the proceeding is managed in accordance with the applicable Nevada procedural and ethical rules. Nevada Supreme Court Rule 42, Section 1A applies to, it's actually 1A subsection 2, all actions or proceedings pending before an administrative agency or a governmental body in this state, which this is, unless that agency or governmental body provides otherwise. Are you licensed to practice in the state of Nevada?
No, I am not.
Pursuant to subsection 2, it says that a lawyer who has been retained to represent a client in this state in an action or proceeding set forth in the rule that I just cited to you may file a written application to appear as counsel in that action or proceeding. Have you done that?
No, I have not.
Okay, sir. I understand that you represent them, and I just want to make you aware of this rule and that it is a violation for you to practice law during this meeting in the state of Nevada without getting a motion filed with the state bar and also an order allowing you to do so.
Well, I guess I was going to comment on the facts and the history of these people and what I know about them. I did not regard this as a legal proceeding, although now that you pointed out, it does say that the rule applies to actions or proceedings pending before an administrative agency unless the agency or governmental body provides otherwise. So I guess it's up to the commission whether they wish to exclude me, is the way I would read rule section 41A 1A2.
This
And
governmental
so,
body doesn't have a rule that provides otherwise. Then, so if you haven't filed a motion or received an order, there's not something that we have, and I'm representing that to you as the lawyer for this body. There's not something that we have that waives that. So I can't prevent you from speaking. I just want to make you aware of it, and I obviously have a responsibility as a lawyer for this board to make sure that you're aware and that it's on record. Thank you.
okay, I appreciate the advice. I shall refrain from offering any legal conclusions. I will merely offer what I know out of personal knowledge from interacting with the Ringos over the years. And that's what I will limit myself to doing. And so I will just say that if someone had intentionally let me say this, it is the nature of this universe of animals and cast off animals and so forth and so on, that if you are rescuing animals, you are rescuing them from people who would generally be regarded as unsavory because they have acquired these animals and then they're unable to take care of them. And so if you rescue them because they're sick or because this person can't take care of them, I think it's really, really misleading to characterize that rescue operation as trafficking with the felon. It's not somebody who's, a co-conspirator in some, let me get away from the legal thing. It is rescuing something from somebody who can't handle it. And I think that what the witness just now has done has totally misrepresented the nature of what's going on here. And I think if the commission were to question the witness, they would find out that she doesn't have any personal knowledge other than the fact that this animal went from person A to person B. And why that is, Mrs. Ringo can explain all that and the sickness and driving all night back from Oklahoma and all that kind of stuff. But I think the board should be very careful that what it's hearing is people who actually know something about what happened.
Mr.
And I'll be
Bucco,
just here today in that capacity.
are the Ringos present? And so the Ringos can speak to the questions that the board and the public have. I can't tell, I'm not seeing their name, but if they're present, can they answer the questions from the public and from the board? Okay, is there anybody else on the computer that would like to respond? If not, then we'll go and move on.
Yes, I'm Linda Sugasa, Director of Safe Haven Wildlife
Here, I think
Sanctuary.
they're just, I think they're having problem with the pound 6
At the last hearing,
meeting.
I want to definitely oppose the conditional use permit of Tiger Preservation Center.
Hello, the Ringos are here, they're present. They
Hello.
like to count.
Can I just ask those on the computer right now to mute yourselves for just a minute?
Okay.
We
I
have
think they're just having
someone else in
a
the
problem
audience
with the
that's
muting.
speaking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll call you after our next individual speaks to us. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And if you guys, I'm sorry, if the committee had any questions for me?
I don't. Does anybody have any questions for?
No.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, go ahead on the computer. Whoever that was just trying to comment.
Was I? No? Okay.
Phone number ending in 1585.
Yes, hi. The Ringos are present. They're on the phone. I think they're having problem with the muting versus unmuting. So I know they would like to comment on that.
Okay, so phone number ending 2287. Would you like to comment?
Yes, this is Bonnie Ringo. I got a tip from a person that was down working at Joe Exotics that there were some animals down there that were in real need. And I did go down and pick up a lemur. I was given a health certificate for this animal. He was a baby and he was in extremely poor health. I believe, and so does my vet, that if I hadn't picked him up and taken him home that night, he would not have lived very long. I was given a health certificate, and the health certificate was off by 2 months of a date. I didn't notice this when I picked the animal up because I was ushered in and ushered out. I had picked up one sick baby that day and picked up a tiger that belonged to a friend of mine to remove that animal from the facility. When I got home, I realized that there was something incorrect about the health certificate, and I submitted all of that to my federal inspector at the time. He then asked the federal marshal to come to my home, and she spoke with me for an hour and a half about what happened. The issue was corrected, and I have not had any violations from the federal marshal regarding any type of movement of endangered species that would be against the Federal Endangered Species Act.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can we have, so I'm going to continue to call the rest of the audience up. So maybe we can start in the front row and we'll just work our way from the front to the back unless there's somebody who has to leave quickly. We can start on this side. Again, just for the record, please state your name and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you have a question for the applicants, for the Ringos, just you can address them and keep their response back as well to 3 minutes.
Members of the Humboldt County Regional
We
Planning
might need you to speak into your microphone a little better.
And you also need to state.
My
your
name is Norman Keith Kellison, and I own some property, several hundred acres around this airport, and it's within the proximity, and I've been notified. And I'd like to discuss about first safety. Wild animals, in my experience, and I've had considerable experience with wild animals, are dangerous. By nature, they don't know if they're hungry. I don't care if it's a bear, whether it's a mountain lion, or whether it's a tiger, or it's a leopard. If they're hungry and they haven't been taken care of for it, they're dangerous. And I don't think you could dispute that. I've traveled through the India, and I'm back in the Madras area, which is right down, talking to spirit worshipers. And I talked to many people who were killed. Not they actually had relatives who were killed, and they were all scared to go out at night. They weren't going to walk those dark paths at night because their wild animals are treacherous and they do kill. Now, I've also had experience up in Alaska when I was fishing up in the peninsula, the peninsula when I was down there, and the bears got out there, the big bears, and they smashed the tail of the airplane, which you're right near the airport. But they smashed it and they made us so we couldn't fly back several days. We couldn't certainly go fishing because our airplane was out of commission. And the bears actually got into the compound, knocking down the fence, and got into the compound and scared the heck out of a lot of fishermen while I was up there. So they do get dangerous. And we've all heard about the story that recently in Durant, of course, Durango, I have some relatives there, or my girlfriend has some relatives there. And they've just got through with the bear eating a jogger. And they had to kill, they found the mama and had to kill the two bears also. So the idea that they're not dangerous when they're out is wrong. Now, I'd like to talk about if something does go wrong and you have an angry father, let's say he loses his son, what's he going to do? Is he going to look, he's going to go find an attorney and he's going to sue for money, civil, and he's also going to try and punish those people in any way he can. So what's he going to do? First, he's going to look at the Humboldt County. He's going to say, look, where's my liability? And they're going to say, well, yeah, we'll give you $100,000 or so because we have a limited liability statute that only gives you so much money. But then he says, that's not enough. My son's been killed or my daughter's been killed and I'm angry. And then he's going to say, look, I think I should get a bit more dramatic and let's not go beyond the Humboldt County and let's go to the city and let's talk about that. And let's go to the Planning Commission. They're a body that approved it. And then now we have a new expansion of liability, I think that you're all aware of, where a person who's representing it is being attacked and being accused. And that is a case, there's a Derek Chauvin case where he was trying to regulate an unruly black person. And obviously now he's been convicted of murder 2 and murder 3, and there's civil liability, civils going on all around.
Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you short. We just have a whole room of people.
No,
and we
okay,
need to get moving on.
let me finish though. Okay, so I guess that I'm just trying to state that in order to do it, your liability, is very, very large. Now, it seems to me that you also have liability coming from the inspection of the cages, be ensuring there's no negligence or deterioration. And if the donations aren't sufficient to make it, then you got to inspect to make sure they're properly fed and watered. And then the last thing I'd like to say, and I have a lot more to say, but if the conditional use permit is not really compatible with the present use of the people out there. There's no way that it's dangerous to the people. It's a housing area. There's a lot of homes out there, and it's dangerous. So if you're going to want to, one, create danger for the residents, two, if you want to restrain development in Winnemucca, that's a good way to do it. Make it dangerous for them, and you'll have a lot of restraint of development. You can do that. So I think they ought to apply better someplace else, 20 or 30 miles outside of the area of Winnemucca, and then maybe something can be done, but not where they're presently applying.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, so if we can have our next audience member come up, I don't know if the Ringos would like to respond to those comments. If not, we will continue with our audience public comment.
Before anybody speaks, I noticed that Mrs. Ringo had left the meeting and she's back on. I did mute you because there was noise coming from your phone or however you're calling in, and it was disrupting the speaker. So just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, yes, if you'll just list your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Checky. I'm here to speak against this proposal.
What's your last name? I'm sorry.
Checky.
How do you spell that?
Cecchi.
Okay, thank you.
In summary, I think the main problem is that the proposed project is simply not compatible with a residential area.
Yeah, could you speak into your microphone a little closer so everyone can hear? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better? Again, what I've said is I think that this proposed project is simply not compatible with the residential area. There are obvious potential problems, sounds from the animals, growling, et cetera, smell, all that. And even though it has been downplayed, there's always the possibility of an animal getting loose. And certainly for a homeowner that lives in the area, particularly with children, this would understandably be a real concern. We have to remember when people buy a house or build a house in a given area, as has been done already in this vicinity, these people invested with the reasonable expectation that there would not be an animal preserve in their backyard. So for my feeling is that, as the previous speaker said, if the committee here wishes to authorize such a project, it should be at least 20 or 30 or 40 miles away. If people 20 or 30 or 40 years from now choose to build a house next to it, that's fine, but they already knew what they were getting into. Because of the issues that I've mentioned, there's obviously the danger to home values. And I will be the first to admit I'm here because I'm a landowner in the area. If land values go down, it impacts the value of my land. It impacts the ability of me to sell parcels to people who might wish to build homes, live here in a residential area. So I would just again urge this committee to vote against this project because I don't think it's in the interest of the committee in general. And on a personal note, it's not in the interest of my property values. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have our next audience member that would like to come up and address the board?
Hello, good evening. My name is Sasha Altman. Thank you for this opportunity to express my opposition to the permit for the rescue and rehabilitation facility for exotic animals on property located in Humboldt County. My husband and I purchased our home on Herschel Road 13 years ago. We have 5 children and live on a 10-acre parcel with numerous pet animals, and livestock. My pressing concern is that of safety. I'm wondering why the Ringos selected this particular location, which is surrounded by homes and businesses. It makes me uneasy to think that my children will be outside playing in the yard or riding their bikes, knowing that just down the road could be tigers, wolves, or other large predatory animals. We can hope there would never be an escape. However, we all know that that possibility will always exist. I'm concerned about the enclosures and the perimeter fence the owners have submitted in their plans to the commission. I have looked over their plans and also researched USDA recommendations for cat enclosures. The owner's plan lists each animal enclosure at being 14 to 15 feet in height, but they fail to include the specifics of what type of fencing they will use and at what point the main ground fencing will end and a second material, such as a kick-in start, which is what is suggested by the USDA. Since the safety of each child in the surrounding area depends on the accuracy and best efforts of these owners, I don't feel it inappropriate to expect more detailed plans from them before the commission were to approve their requested permit. Surrounding the animal enclosures, the owners have planned on a 10-foot perimeter fence with no other kind of material listed, such as hot wire or non-climbable sheet metal, to aid in preventing an escape. I would like to ask the owners why they chose this height with no secondary material. The National Wildlife Federation reports that tigers can leap as high as 12 feet. Shouldn't a perimeter fence at least be taller than a tiger can jump? Where the safety and well-being of children playing nearby in their own yards and neighborhoods is at stake, I would expect nothing less than a detailed plan that shows the owner's intentions of going above and beyond to see that our children are protected. I'm also wondering for how many millions of dollars the Ringos carry liability insurance to compensate families in the case of injury or death, and if they don't carry this kind of insurance, is the county going to end up being liable? Thank you.
Thank you. Would the Ringos like to respond to those comments?
Yes, we would. Our perimeter fences are 5 to 6 feet over regulation of USDA perimeter fences. So are our interior cages as well. And USDA has been in the business of inspecting, and with some liability on USDA as inspectors, they're very thorough when they come and look at a facility before it is passed to make sure that you are within the regulatory measures designed for the species that you're housing. So we are above and beyond all the regulations with the sizes of our cages, care given to the animals, and public safety.
Could you address the liability question that was brought up?
Yes, we do carry $1 million liability at this time, and we would continue carrying that.
Okay, thank you. Can we have our next audience? Yes. Yes, okay, so I'm not sure if you can hear the audience, but why you chose this particular area?
It's 160 acres. When we looked at the property, we're quite far removed. The facility would be where the tigers would actually be housed on 160 acres, quite removed from being close to houses. I think 160 acres is a pretty good sized parcel for what we're planning on doing.
Plus, we liked it for the water.
And it has water. We can create good environments. We can do our pastures as planned. And that's why we chose that property.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have our next audience member come up. Anybody else who'd like to address the board?
Before moving on, audience member in the back who just reminded about the question, what's your name? Jessica Lake. Thank you.
Just for full disclosure, I am a member of the planning board in Pershing County.
Okay, good. And if you could just speak into the microphone. So, okay,
so sorry.
Not a problem.
Okay, so the reason I'm here is because I happen to live right on the other side.
Ma'am, can you please state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Tori Apperson. Got it? Okay. The reason I'm here to speak tonight has nothing to do with the planning board back there. Okay. I live on the other side of what you guys call spring something, and we call it power line. It's actually the actual Pershing and Humboldt line. I can see from my home and my ranch exactly where they're going to put this thing. And we have so many, I'm just down from you, so many horses out there, and we have animals. We have so many cows and just tons of things out there, along with children. My main questions are, she might have not had 160 acres, but I believe she had two 40-acre parcels in Pershing County, and they just pulled out. We never got to come back and ask more questions. That kind of bothered all of us because we had our meeting last night and we talked about why it didn't happen to some other people that were there. So one of the concerns I have is that I don't know if you guys are aware of this because I don't know anybody in Nevada who isn't, but there's a big water problem in our valley, regardless of whether it's in Pershing or Humboldt. We're all sharing the same water. And there is people on the Sonoma side who don't have water. They're digging wells and they're not getting, spending all this money, they're still not getting water. So I want to know how much water they're going to use. I know that Bonnie Ringo constantly talks about the USA, but I just want to, or the USDA, I just want to let you know that once a year, the USDA comes out once a year and has been criticized by its own internal auditors repeatedly for failing to ensure the bare minimum standards. Now, just a quick thing. I grew up in Irvine, California, and I worked at Lion Country Safari until it stopped. And what happened to them is they built Irvine around it, so it just couldn't exist anymore. But I witnessed, when the little drive-by going through, I actually witnessed somebody roll down their window so their child could touch the kitty cat and boom, out of the car, dead. It does happen. It can happen. And I can tell you there's 25 people and 14 children just across that road. And there's other concerns, and I know I only have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
But there's also, I just want to let you know that there's over 15 people that wanted to come tonight, but they work till 7:30, and they're all from Pershing County.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bonnie or Mr. Ringo, would you like to respond to those questions?
Yes, we pulled out of Pershing County simply because of the water situation. We wanted to be able to have water for the animals. I think it's important to have trees and natural shade, and that their lives are accommodated by as closely as possible the things that they enjoy. Tigers love water, and the property does come with water rights. And again, as far as USDA goes, if this woman has an issue with them, she probably should take it up with the federal people because they've been doing the job that they were designed to do for many years.
Okay, thank you. And just the amount of water usage, I'm not sure if you know that. She asked that as well.
I don't understand the question, please.
She just asked how much water you would be using. I'm not sure if you know that.
Yes, we do. We have 50 acre feet designated for usage on that property. It does come with water rights.
50 acre feet?
Yes, ma'am. Enough to be able to water a 45 acre pasture, I believe.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. We'll go ahead.
My name's Deborah Gay. I had a question for the Ringos. I had seen that the reason that they decided to move from Oregon was because of a fencing ordinance that they were going to force them to do, that they said that they didn't have the money to do. My question to you is, what kind of fence were they requiring you to put up, and why were they requiring you to put up this fence? Because my question to this board and everybody on it is, the fence should be as good as the one they're trying to make you put up in Oregon. I think this 10-foot fence that we supposedly had agreed to let you guys put in, I really don't think it's the standard. I would like to know what kind of fence they wanted you to put up and why they wanted you to put that fence up.
Okay.
Well,
Mrs. Ringo, can you answer that?
Okay. Yes. They actually didn't want us to put up a fence, and the fence that we do have is a regulation fence right now. They didn't want a wooden fence. And the reason that we put up a solid wooden fence is because a neighbor that has a long issue of criminal assault had opened fire on my daughter and I in '08. And because of the nature of the animals, we wanted to have a protection fence for them. So a privacy fence as well as, so he couldn't, you know, shoot across his property and possibly injure one of our animals. So we put up a wooden fence, which has all been passed and sanctioned by the county.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have. Well, I just wanted to bring one other thing up. Somebody was telling me the other day about vandals, people that are against them housing tigers and stuff. You also have to be prepared to realize that there are people out there that could come cut fences, do things to get these animals out of there. It's not like they have never done that before. So that's another issue you guys have to really think about before you approve this permit, that there are activists out there that do not like animals in cages. So, and this was brought to my attention to actually be prepared for something like that to happen.
Thank you.
We have security cameras and monitors that are 24/7, so we will be prepared.
Thank you, Linda. So we'll go ahead. Can we have the next audience member come up?
I don't move very well, so I haven't asked here. Just have one question for Ringo.
Sir, and your name for the record, Mr. Conger.
Why were you turned down by Lyon County?
Okay, were you able to hear that? He's asking, why were you turned down by Lyon County?
Lyon County in the very beginning had told us that we didn't need a conditional use permit. We bought one house. It wasn't going to work. Rob Pratt had told us he was the building county planner and told us that wouldn't be a good location. We found another location, and because there was so much that we actually would need to do for that particular second property that we purchased, we decided it would not be a good location for the calves.
Okay. All right, can we have our next audience member come up? Again, for the record, just state your name.
You need to talk into the microphone so we can hear you, please.
My name's Brenda Babb, and I just wanted to go back to the dust suppression. If they're going to clear 160 acres, they're only going to plant 45 acres. What happens with the rest of that? How are they keeping the dust down on the rest of that?
Okay, Bonnie, can you respond to that?
Well, I don't believe we're going to clear a total of 160 acres. We're going to clear probably at least enough to do our pasture. I'm asking my husband right now.
We're going to do our pasture and enough to put the facility in on the other 40 acres.
Can you hear him speaking? I'm
No, if
sorry,
you
I'm
can
having issues getting cut off here. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you hear
you.
me?
We could not
Oh,
hear your
okay.
husband.
All right. I'm not going to clean off the entire 160 acres. I'm just going to clean off enough to plant the 40 acres of pasture, plus the 40 acres where the cats will be. I'm going to cut that down, but the cats will have grass in their cages, and they'll have water features and trees surrounding them. And the 160 acres just allows a buffer really for the cats to be there to have a little privacy for themselves. You know, we're not trying to make a big tourist zoo or anything like that. We're just trying to get them some peace and quiet, hoping this would be a good spot for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm under the impression that Pershing County has more water than Humboldt County. So they're already talking about doing more than 45 acres. If they have 40-acre pasture plus what the cats are in, they're going to have to water all of that. So I'm just not understanding that, but I guess it is what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, supposedly we have 90 acre feet.
90 acre feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Whatever that comes out to.
On the water rights.
Do you know the year of your water rights?
I think 1912.
1990? Oh.
1912.
12.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else from the audience that would like to come up?
My name is Mardell Gallio.
Can you
And-
speak into the microphone?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Mardell Gallio. I'm concerned about the safety, also the diseases. And why would you want to put this enclosure in a residential area? That doesn't make sense to me. They have been run out of Oregon. They haven't been able to do Lyon County for whatever excuse or reason. 50 acres of water rights. They don't know if that's water rights. Let them go out in the country. This is a residential home area. There's cattle that graze out there. There's horses, there's that. And when something gets out, who are they going to notify? Who do they have to notify? Anybody that lives in, 300 feet of them? Nobody lives in 300 feet of them. So they're not going to have to notify anybody. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. You guys need to, we live in this county. They don't. They could care less about you, me, or whatever.
Thank you. You brought up a point that I just want to clarify with the Ringos. So I asked this question at our last meeting. It's my understanding that you're still going to keep your sanctuary in Oregon. Is that correct? That you're not relocating? Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
And we've not been run, we've not been run out of Oregon.
So
what about they're getting animals that are diseased? Are they going to have
No.
a vet there? Are they going to have a brand inspector? There's not enough brand inspectors for this county as it is.
Okay, would you like to address those questions?
Yes. First of all, these animals do not carry any diseases that are transmittable to humans other than if you touch a tiger with ringworm, you might end up getting ringworm. But any type of panleukopenia, colici, any of the rhino tracheus viruses that these animals would have are species specific. They are not going to be transmitted to humans.
Or cattle.
Or cattle
horses.
or horses.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the audience who'd like to come and address the board or questions for the Ringos?
I'm Rebecca Kinnison, and I would like to know a very detailed how you would plan to keep track of every single animal. Are they going to be microchipped? Is there going to be an alarm that goes off when they go outside the perimeter? And am I allowed to defend my family? And I need to be notified when there is an animal out. I have enough problems with coyotes coming and trying to eat my children in my own yard. I don't need a tiger. I have animals. My family is everything to me. And I know my family is everything to everybody in this community. And these animals, if they get out, they are threatening our livelihood for ranchers, for homemakers like me. I go milk my cow in the dark, morning and night, if sometimes of the year. Do I have to go out in fear that I'm going to be attacked in my own yard? These are very big concerns for me. I need to know I am safe in my own yard from not being attacked by an animal. You know, it's one thing to be a coyote or a dog, but an animal that can snatch me or my children in seconds and you never even hear them and we're gone.
Ringos, could you address that question?
Yes. There have been more attacks on human beings by pit bulls than there have been coyotes or wildlife in general. More attacks by Rottweilers. In fact, the
Excuse
statistics are
me, I'm
surprising.
talking about a wild animal, not domestic.
I understand that, but the point I'm trying to make is these animals are housed very carefully. We put our whole life into this. We don't want to bring animals into an area and have them escape. We have never had an escape in all of the years that we have done this, and we don't plan on anybody escaping at all. This was addressed. The Sheriff's Department does have a safe alert program to notify citizens in the event an animal would get out of the perimeter compound. And yes, you can defend your property, you can shoot and kill. And that's exactly what we would have to do for public safety. If that animal gets out of the perimeter compound, we will dispatch the animal.
Can you address the microchip portion of her question?
Yes, our animals are microchipped.
Is there an alarm system around your perimeter that would alert you, not just video cameras? Because it's hard to monitor that many video cameras with that big of an area of acreage.
We have a red alert buzzer, and we could install that at the entry gates that will be on the animals' cages.
Okay, thank you.
And wireless cameras also have alerts.
I'm sorry, Miss, we're just allowing the audience members to come once. Can we have the next member from the audience to come up? Would anybody else like to address the board and the Ringos?
My name is Jessica Lake. I am located on Moose Drive, which I've been informed you will be building within a mile of where my house is. Is that correct? Where your tigers are going to be held and your wild animals?
Yes.
Oh, so it is in my backyard? So I do have to listen to the animals at night while we're sleeping, we have school, we have work. Do you think that's okay?
These animals don't make noise like a barking dog does. The lion might roar twice during a 24-hour period.
What about
and I have one lion. The lemurs don't make noise.
And somebody mentioned disease that brought up a concern with mosquitoes. Mosquitoes can get in and they can get out. If it bites or drinks from your lion or your animals and it bites one of us, can it cause any health issues?
No, ma'am. Any type of zoological issues within the species is species specific. It cannot be transmitted to people.
And my last question would be, have you physically been to where you want to build? Have you seen the houses, the families?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
that doesn't cause concern to you?
No, ma'am. It doesn't. There's many zoos that are built right in the middle of cities and in the middle of towns.
But you're not a zoo. You don't have
No,
the same requirements
we're
as
not a zoo, but there's
You're
much
just-
more.
You're people who decided to raise and protect tigers, which I appreciate. I really do. But there's 160 acres elsewhere away from families.
Okay, thank you.
I understand your concern, but really you shouldn't really be concerned at all. I understand that you are, but the safety protocol is a major issue with us, always has been, and that's why we have a clean record with no escapes of any kind.
Is there anyone else from the audience who'd like to come up? Okay. If you can just, state it in the microphone.
My name is Helen Mahoney. I live on Moose Drive. I'd like to know, are you going to live there, or how many people are going to be watching the animals and living there?
There will be people there at all time, between 2 and 3 people there at all times.
24/7.
What kind, Are they professional people or are they just people like me or?
No, these people have been trained, specifically trained. My daughter is one of them. She's 36 years old, very capable. And both of the workers that I have are very capable. They've been trained. There will be somebody there all the time.
I still, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public who'd like to come comment?
No one ever heard about it. Nobody was called. There's no information anywhere.
Okay, so let me just ask. So if I'm correct, they're just, so your comment and then Ms. Gay, you're anxious to make one more comment. If you could just please just come back up and speak at the microphone then, and then it seems like we are.
But my name's Deborah Gay. Ringo said something about the.
Go ahead and speak in the microphone, please.
The sheriff said that they have an alert system. My question to the sheriff is, what is this alert system? What kind of alert system? Because I've never seen one. I've never heard one. And how is he going to alert 300 people that are surrounding that area that there is a loose tiger, a loose llama, or a loose wolf
dog?
I mean, they're saying they've got some kind of alert system, but I've never seen one. I would like to know what that alert system is.
And my question is, how are you going to count cross the county line?
Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Ringo, can you address those two questions?
Okay. The sheriff, I think it's best that you talk to him personally and he'll explain that. He could probably explain it a lot better than I can about the alert system. And we will be meeting with him. It will be in text form. When you get a text message on your phone, it will be an alert system to notify you. And he can probably better explain that. And what was the other concern?
Crossing the county line.
Crossing the county line is a matter of the Department of Agriculture and the health certificates that we will provide the Department of Agriculture of Nevada with for each animal that crosses the county line.
She's talking about escape across the county.
Escape across the county? You're talking about an escape? I'm not understanding how, okay, are you talking about when an animal escapes across the county line? Or, I don't understand the question, I guess.
My county is right next to yours. It borders your property. I can see where your property is. And you're saying the sheriff has this text message. Well, that's for Humboldt. It does not come to Pershing. So do you have something that makes your cats stop at the county line? Because I remember in my meeting, your husband said, cats just go a mile and stop. Now, that's just not true. So are they going to stop at the county line? Is somebody else going to help us? How are we going to find out that a dog or a cat or whatever you've got coming here is loose? And if it is loose, what are we supposed to do? Do we strap on our guns so we can go in and out of our house? Do we leave our dogs inside? You're not informing anybody of anything and just saying, talk to the sheriff, he's going to text you. Well, at a certain part of time at night, my husband and I turn off our phones so we can rest and relax and sleep. So when the cats come in the middle of the night, what are we supposed to do?
Well, I'm sure that the sheriff is very capable of speaking to any official in Pershing County that would be concerned about this.
Okay, so we didn't want to hear from people multiple times, so just go ahead and briefly make your comment, and then if there are no other members of the public that have had a chance to address the board, we'll go ahead and close the floor to the public and then have the board be able to ask questions of the applicant and staff.
I just wanted to make.
Hang on, sorry. Ma'am, can you tell me your name again that just spoke and asked a question for the record? Thank you. And if you come back up and make comments, if the chairperson allows you to do that, please begin your comment or question with what your name is again.
My name is Rebecca Kennison, and I just wanted to make the comment that there is enough, like, we live across a freeway from a prison camp, and we aren't notified when we have escapees. And I find out later or a week later after it happens, and after the danger is already happened, that anything's going on. So there is no alert system in place for if there is a wild animal like that out on the prowl. And that's just what I wanted to let you guys aware of.
Okay, thank you. So Mrs. Conger, did you want to come up and make your point for the record? You haven't had a chance to come up. Okay, and I don't know if anybody could hear her point, but the point was how long it would take the sheriff or the emergency response team to get out to the area if there was a problem. Okay.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I just want to let you know for purposes of the record that Under Sheriff Malone is on this call.
Okay. So Sheriff Malone, would you like to respond to that question?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Under Sheriff Kevin Malone here for the record. I didn't quite hear the whole question. If you could repeat it, please.
So I'm going to, Mrs. Conger, do you want to come up and ask your question? No. No. Am I okay to paraphrase it? Am I getting it correctly? Her concern was how long it would take the sheriff or the emergency vehicles to come out to that area in the case of an emergency or an escaped animal.
Since our personnel are always on patrol, it's kind of hard to give you an exact answer. Oftentimes, you know, the Grass Valley area and the Winnemucca area is what we consider the valley. It is our main population hub, so it does get quite a bit more patrolled than, say, the other outlying areas. However, we do only have 2 people on at any given time. And if a call takes us, you know, up to, you know, Paradise Valley or even Valmy or that area, it's going to delay us at least, you know, 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, and that's probably obviously a worst given scenario, but I'd say between 20 minutes at the least. It just kind of depends on where our personnel are when that happens.
Okay. Can you address the text system that was mentioned in our packet?
Yes, so I do oversee our dispatch center, and we do have a piece of technology called AlertSense, and we can send out emergency messages via text or voice if something were to happen. However, you know, the tricky thing is, you know, nobody can just call us and say we have this emergency in a certain area and we put that message out. That takes, you know, a public safety responder, you know, whether it's one of our deputies or somebody else to tell us that that emergency exists before we can put that out. I would be very careful with that, because if, you know, say a former employee who might be mad, you know, of the people opening this thing, you know, say they know, you know, whatever process we come up with to, you know, put the steps in motion to send that alert out, you know, they could call us and essentially prank the sanctuary or whatever it's called. And, you know, we could put out this message that, you know, alarms and scares, you know, multiple people out in that area. And I mean, we all know how bad that would be.
Okay, thank you.
I
All
have
right.
a question.
Yes.
Kevin, this is Kevin.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
Ken and I talked a couple weeks ago regarding the outcome of the meeting between you and the representatives from the Ringos. And I also know that you suggested members of the Department of Wildlife and Agriculture be there as well. And also just to get a more clear feeling for what this is really going to look like if this was to happen. Is any of that taken place yet?
Not to my knowledge. I have only had that one email exchange with the representative of the Ringos, and which I forwarded you and Betty as well.
Okay, thanks.
So Under Sheriff Malone, this is Deborah Gregan. I had a question as well. I don't live out in that area, but what is the strength of the cellular signal in that area?
It's pretty strong. I wouldn't really have any issues regarding that. To my knowledge, we've never had any issues regarding anybody with cell service out in that area.
Okay. All right, Keely.
Yes, Mr. Malone, this is Keely McClinic. Tell me what would occur if someone called 911? What would the procedure be? Excuse me, let me elaborate. And told you that an animal had escaped. What would your protocol be then?
Immediately, our dispatchers would tell our personnel via the radio that was the report, and we would try to get people in the area immediately. Now, something to think about is when somebody sees a tiger or a lion or something like that, we are not just going to get one 911 call. We are going to see probably multiples. And knowing that, I've been here my entire life and I've never seen a organization such as this come to our community. I can't imagine the 911 calls that would flood our area or our system.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of the Ringos calling, because they would be the first to know that they had an animal.
Right. So, I'm sorry to interrupt, but our dispatch would stay on the line with the caller and try to keep getting updated information as soon as possible and get that information out to our deputies. In a situation like this, I could see even, the WPD or even Highway Patrol or somebody like that going with us, because nobody knows how to handle one of these animals.
Right. So, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you just answer me this? Does it then become does the loose animal then become your responsibility? Does the public become your responsibility? Or would you expect the Ringos to have some type of thorough protocol set in place to begin with, to kind of bridge the gap between the panic that's going on at the center and the panic that might go, or the process of what the neighbors should be doing as far as with their children and animals and whatnot? Does it become your responsibility, or is it theirs to have something in place?
Well, I would say both. Obviously the duty to keep their animals inside and protect the public from them, and vice versa, would fall on the Ringos. However, once a risk to public safety comes, it does fall on us, and we would respond accordingly.
Great, thank you, Keely. I'm gonna. If there are no more comments that aren't redundant in nature, we're hearing some of the same things and the same concerns over and over again. So if there's something that is new that hasn't been addressed, I'm going to close the floor to the public, and I'm going to open the floor back to the board, so the board can ask questions of the Ringos or ask questions of the public. Mrs. Conger, do you have a question?
My name is Anita Conger. I have a question about this little kid that was out playing in his yard and a tiger bit his arm off. So what is it going to take to get medical emergencies out there to save that child's life?
Madam Chair, if I could answer that.
Yes.
So again, Under Sheriff Kevin Malone here for the record. I've been a member of the Sheriff's Office for 23 years, and for several of those years, I operated in a dual capacity and also responded to medical calls and was on staff with HGH EMS Rescue. First and foremost, the hospital isn't going to respond out there until that scene is safe. So if there's a possibility of a child being bit by a tiger or a wild animal, nobody is going to respond until that scene is safe. And that would come after, obviously, our personnel, other, law enforcement personnel, make that scene safe for them. And, there's a number of ways that could happen. Either the owners of the animal take whatever steps needed to secure the animal, or law enforcement would. I'm trying to be very careful in my wording here, because I wouldn't want anybody to think that we're going to purposely go out and destroy an animal such as that. But in the case where it's attacking a child, we absolutely will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there's any, so we're gonna close the floor to the public. I know as board members we have a lot of questions for the Ringos as well. I think we've heard everyone's concerns. So I'll go ahead and then just open the floor to the board, and we can ask questions. I have some questions to the Ringos about your recapture protocol. So this was included with our updated staff report. You are mentioning your perimeter fence. So I guess I just wanted a little bit of clarification about what the perimeter fence really was. So the perimeter fence is not the fence that encloses the whole 160 acres, because I know you mentioned you wanted to enclose the 160 acres. Is the perimeter fence just what is going to be surrounding the animal enclosures?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just a couple other questions that I had, and then we'll kind of let the other board members ask their questions. So what are you going to be doing with the animal waste that's there on the property?
I would imagine we will be taking it to the dump. That's what we do now.
Okay, great. And then you have plans for the 30 by 40 foot residence. So who is it that will be residing in that residence and living there? So, I mean, will there be a caretaker that's living there, or are these employees that are just going to be there around the clock? Or is this your personal residence and you'll be moving here and living here on this site?
Well, eventually we would like to be able to. I believe that there are 4 parcels that we could possibly put a house on each one. Am I correct in that?
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Does any other members of the board have any questions?
I think most of Oh, I do. Mrs. Ringo, this is Keely McClistick. You've mentioned more than once today that you intend to have 2 to 3 trained people on site at all times.
Correct.
How many employees do you intend to have?
Well, my daughter won't be an employee, but she's 36 years old, very capable. And we will have 2 employees that are trained, that have been with us for quite a while.
Okay, so wait a minute. Your daughter, so you're considering your daughter as a trained employee?
Well, not really an employee. She will just be there on behalf of, the center, taking care of the animals.
Okay.
When we're not there, and when we're there, she will be up here.
Okay, so I'm trying to visualize this. So, and how many employees do you have up in Oregon?
Currently, we just have 2 that are volunteering at this time. They have other work that they're doing, that they're engaged with currently, but when we make the move to Nevada, they will move down there with us and make that their permanent home, and
so
they will be employed.
2 of you and your 2 interns are staying in Oregon, and then your daughter.
Temporarily. Yeah, I actually have a volunteer here that comes every day, and she works with my daughter right now. She has been with me for 2 years, and then I have 2 other people that have been with me for 5 years, and then my husband and myself. So we will be able to have somebody here at this facility, 2 people, and then 2 people down there at all times, or 3 people more than likely at the center down there. But we don't leave the facility alone ever.
Okay,
If
so
somebody is never unmanned.
Yeah.
in your packet, it says otherwise, however. In your
Okay.
packet, it says that your husband will be taking the meat to the dump and going to pick up meat.
Right.
And then yet last month during our discussion, you told me that you would go take animals to the vet in the Reno area. So
Either in the Reno area or Oregon area. We're not sure. We do have a vet in California, and we do have one in Oregon.
okay. So that would eliminate at least one person, correct? Do you travel alone with the animals, or are there
No.
two?
No, we don't. But when we're going to take an animal, we arrange here to have somebody else on staff if my husband and I go to take an animal.
Okay,
So
so
we
I
won't just, if we have to leave for any type of emergency to one of the cats, we would arrange that prior to us taking off and just leaving the place.
but there are always 2 to 3 people on the premises
Yes,
that are trained.
yes.
Okay, so can I keep going? Okay, sorry. I will just voice my opinion about your recapture protocol, the emergency contingency plan that we asked you to get us this last month. I'm really disappointed in it. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's very vague. And so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. How are your employees trained? When you say trained, how are they?
They work alongside of us, and they work alongside of us when we're medicating animals, when we're feeding animals, when we're transporting animals, when we're moving an animal from one enclosure to another. They're with us whenever we're working on site with the animals and off site with the animals. And by off site, I mean when they have to go to the vet. That's the only time they're removed. We don't take them to shows. We don't take them out other than going to the veterinarian.
We don't take them out for walks.
Okay. Are they trained in fire safety?
Yes. Well, the fire safety here is a lot different than what you have there. We have fire equipment, and I don't know if Betty got the pictures. I don't know if she did or not. But we have generators, and my husband, he can.
And we have 3 gasoline-powered water pumps and about 1,000 feet of hose. And we're also going to have a couple of 2,500-gallon tanks that are just for storing water, just for that purpose, just in case of fire, in case all the power goes out all around. I've got a gasoline-powered pump that will pump it from my tank.
Okay. Can you list the formal training? I'm confused about what is just kind of a let me show you how to do it and what is practical formal training with these exotic large animals.
Can you describe what you would consider formal training?
So
that I
maybe
can better
I can
understand?
elaborate on that because I have that same question. This is Demara Gray. Whether they have, a college degree in zoology or biology, or do they have, previous experience, in internships or other areas, or, is it just kind of on the job training that you're providing, as they're working with you?
It's pretty much hands-on training.
On the job training,
Yeah.
yes.
Because that's the best way we have found for people to actually learn how to really get their, information correct on moving an animal, how to do it. I mean, you can read it in a book, but when you're actually doing it, it's a lot different.
Okay, this is Keely McClinic again. I'm just going to come right out instead of just giving you an opportunity to open. I'm just going to get right to it and ask you point blank. What does your employee do if there is an animal escape? What is the procedure? What would they tell me?
Okay, what would they tell you?
Yes, like if I was a neighbor and I said, hey, what's going to happen if you have an animal escape? What is their protocol going to be?
If that animal goes outside the perimeter fence area, they are able to dispatch the animal as quickly as possible.
Okay, so Mrs. Ringo, I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to tell you. So I'm looking at your protocol, and I'm looking at a very similar location, situations protocol. They outline very thoroughly what their what their employee is to do when an animal escapes outside the perimeter, whether it's a dangerous animal or a non-dangerous animal. Then they go on to things that they're supposed to do if there's an animal attack. Then they go through all the items that the employee is to do during a wildfire. Then they go through many items as to what to do, how to contact the neighborhood. They note where the fire extinguishers are. They have a list of emergency contact numbers. They go through all the procedures for wildfire evacuation. They talk about what their employees should do during an accidental drug exposure. And in last, they go through what to do when a trespasser or there's a security threat. You have 10 bullets on your protocol. And 3 of them talk about how dangerous the animal is when they're in panic. You have not shared what you're going to do in any situation. As a person that's sitting on this board on behalf of the public, I am concerned about how to ensure the public that they will be notified and taken care of.
I thought I outlined it pretty well about immobilization of an animal with the veterinarian anybody would be calling the veterinarian. I mean, that's the first step. Call the veterinarian, send a staff member to go retrieve the immobilization drugs, locate the animal, and follow him at a distance. Now, this is if he's in the perimeter fence. This is if only, number 1, to ensure public safety by taking the following steps. Please note, this protocol only applies if the animal has not escaped the confines of the perimeter fence. My staff here has been informed to dispatch the animal. In other words, we would shoot the animal before the sheriff ever got out for public safety's sake. We would dispatch the animal. So,
Mrs. Ringo,
it just, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
While we're on that, the topic of your anesthesia, where are you getting your is it ketamine that you use?
Tilazol probably would be good, a good drug for them, or
Okay,
ketamine, either one.
Where do you obtain that?
Well, it's a federally controlled drug, so we have talked to Desert, the veterinary, what was it, Desert? We have it in our application. The Desert Hospital there, just a little ways down from you. They do the same for Safe Haven. They would come with the drugs that we would need and give us the drugs. We would load it in the dart gun, and then we would shoot the animal to knock him down. And this is a protocol only if he is still within the confines of the perimeter fence. If he gets out of the perimeter fence, it's over.
Are you speaking of a Schedule II drug?
Yes.
Can you administer a Schedule II drug?
With the veterinarian handing it to me, yes, in the presence of a vet, yes. Only in the presence of a vet.
Where is the vet from?
Right down in Winnemucca.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
He's there in Winnemucca, Desert, gosh darn it, I can't remember the name of him right now.
So either way, you would have to call out the vet and wait for the vet to show up.
Yes, you're not allowed to have those drugs on hand. You have to wait for the vet. Now, this is, remember, this is recapture protocol for within the perimeter fence. So he's not out loose to the public. If he's out loose to the public, you have to put him away.
But before the vet ever gets there, we have different gates that we can move around to keep the animal from
confined,
to keep him confined closer to his cage. And we can move those, they're portable on wheels, and we can move those in toward him and guide him back to his own enclosure.
Mr. Ringo,
we included that.
We have never, like I said, we have never had an escape, and we do not practice by letting an animal out to see what it's going to do. So the only time we ever let them out is when we transfer them into a travel cage,
and then they're not out.
And they're never loose ever. They go from their enclosure to the travel cage with no not ever being let loose, in other words. So the travel cage goes into their pen, we put them in the travel cage, secure it, then take them back out of their pen to the vehicle that's going to move them. Otherwise, like I said, we do not practice letting an animal loose just to show someone
I understand.
that kind of protocol.
I was a teacher for 30 years and we practiced monthly active shooters, and we never ever had a real shooter in the school. So I get how you can practice a drill and have to be very
we can
serious
practice the drill. Right.
and not have, okay. I have one more question. How do your two employees on site communicate with each other?
Phone.
Maybe I didn't say that fully. Like, let's say one is cleaning a cage and one is getting meat out of the freezer.
If they needed to communicate, they would text by phone. Our facility is not that big, so, you know, they could probably holler at each other and say, hey, I need help down here, or hey, what are you doing, you know?
So they're going to
yell. Would phone to, I mean, we do have two-way radios also, and if they needed those, they could use those, but we have never had a need for them to use a two-way radio.
So they don't carry a two-way radio, you just have them?
No, just yeah.
So this is Deborah Gray again. Just a question about those two employees. So during the nighttime hours, are they going to be asleep, or the employees that are there at night, are they awake and alert and caring for the animals at night?
No, they go to sleep. I mean, nobody's pacing around like with a loaded firearm watching the cats. We haven't found that to be necessary.
Okay. I also had another question about just maybe a protocol for dust control, as that can be an issue out in that area, and then, you know, fire control as well. I know we've had Tori Sheen submitted the letter about how difficult it is to get out to the property based on the roads, you know, in case of a fire. Not that fires happen in that area often, but you just never know. It needs to be a contingency. Do you have a fire and evacuation plan for the animals in case of a fire and you had to evacuate? And then a dust
travel pages for everybody. And if we had to evacuate, we have fire equipment that would be sufficient to defend this facility in Oregon, and we have huge trees all around the facility. And we've had the fire marshal out. We have made defensible space, but yet we carry this equipment and have it and are ready to put out big, huge trees if they catch on fire. So I think the sagebrush and around the facility, we're going to keep it cleaned away from where the animals are actually housed. However, if we had to evacuate, every animal has a travel cage on wheels, and we would push them into the enclosure, load them, and they load pretty easily, actually. we've never had to drug a cat to get him into a travel cage.
Okay, any other questions from the board of the applicant? Any questions, further questions for staff, for the public? Okay, so at this time, I'd like to just close our discussion and we will go ahead and resolve the matter. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to deny staff report UH 2105 pursuant to Humboldt County Code 17.68, as the applicants have not met their burden of proof by preponderance of the evidence, nor have they provided adequate information to indicate their proposed use of the property will not result in substantial adverse effect matters affecting the public health, safety, and general welfare of the surrounding community.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Wendy, just to make sure that we get this correct, so those of us that are voting in opposition need to, so we personally need to voice our opposition personally, or
So there's a motion on the floor. If you wish to vote on the motion as it is, you may do so. If you wish to amend it, you can add things.
okay, so we don't each personally
no.
need to go back to the code and specify. Okay, very good.
Not unless there's something that you want to add. And if you do, I would just ask Ms. McClintock, I would say what you'd ask her to amend the motion to be.
Okay, all right. So I will ask for the ayes, if there's anybody that's in favor of, so in favor of the denial of the approval of UH 2105. So if you're in favor of denial, please vote aye.
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 Okay, so we have all voted in favor to deny the approval of UH 2105 based on the Humboldt County Code 17-68-090. Betty, do you want to let the applicants know about the appeals process and what can happen at this point for them?
Yes, I had a copy of that. Does somebody, I don't have it. There is an appeal process. The appeal would go to the county commissioners. You have 10 business days to appeal this. You have to submit in writing to the county clerk your appeal and the reason for your appeal. The county commission, once they receive that, or once the clerk receives that appeal, or the county commissioners do, they have 60 days to act on that appeal. And what they would do is hold a public hearing. And you can go to our 1768.
It is in 17.68. It starts at 140.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
can we have the reasons why it was voted down?
Yeah, I think we could each probably personally tell you. For me, Section B of the Humboldt County Code, again, 17.68.090, addresses the master plan for Humboldt County. I do not feel that the proposed use of this property as an animal sanctuary is consistent with the industrial use for this area, since we have an airport and the industrial park already present, and that's the direction that Humboldt County planners would like to see this area develop. Also, Section C of HCC 17-68-090, I feel that the proposed use will result in a substantial or undue adverse effect on the adjacent properties and could affect the safety and general welfare of the residents in close proximity for multiple reasons. One could be excessive dust for the residents, as well as the airport due to poor road conditions, property being cleared. Noise and odor from the animals could disrupt the peace and health and safety of the area. Also, in case of fire and emergency, access to the parcels is poor and it would create a safety issue. And then even with the best safety plans in place, there's still a concern for the health and safety of the residents who are fearful of living close to wild and exotic animals. I've also spoken to several real estate agents and do feel that this location for the sanctuary could have an undue adverse effect on the surrounding property values. So those are my reasons for voting to deny this request. Lindsay?
Keely McClinic.
No.
I agree with Demra. And I don't know if you're all going to go through, we could wait till the end, but I'm wondering if you're all going to go through and state pursuant to the code, additional reasons to Ms. McClintock's motion, if you would like to perhaps reopen the item for voting, amend Ms. McClintock's motion to also include the reasons that you stated and perhaps the others. I'd like to leave that open for you.
Would you like to see us do that?
If that's what you would like, it's up to you. But if you're all going to go through, I'll let you all go through, and then at the end, perhaps you can make a motion to amend with each of your findings.
Lindsay Jimenez for the record. I mean, I'm perfectly, I think that they hit all keys. I'm sure there's multiple things we could all say, but the biggest ones are there.
Yes, and I would agree with that. It's nothing against the park or the rescue itself. It's more where it's being placed. And I think that was pretty evident from everyone in this room that it's just not a good idea.
Yeah, I think we all admire the Ringos for what they're trying to do and for taking care of these animals who need shelter and help and someone to help take care of them. It's probably just the location. I think we would love to have you in another area of Humboldt County where, you know, just the concerns of safety and health and just the general well-being of our residents is not an issue. And
where would you guys recommend? Where would you recommend that we found a place in Nevada? Because, you know, we've been plagued by these wildfires. Not that we're not able to defend our space here, but we're pretty strong Republicans. And I maybe shouldn't bring up politics, but that is the sole honest reason that we really wanted to move to Nevada. Oregon is pretty done as far as communistic control, I guess you could say. But we would like to move to Nevada. Where would you suggest that we move in the area? I mean, we don't know where to go that you guys might approve.
Betty, I don't know if, you know, that we can specifically recommend, but, you know, there are a lot of real estate companies in the area that, you know, are aware. There's a lot of land for sale in rural Nevada, and, you know, I'm sure that there would be, you know, plenty of real estate agents who would be willing to help you try to find the right parcel that would work well for your desires. I'm going to go ahead and just amend the motion to just include all of our personal comments. Do we need to revote to
Yes,
amend
please.
it?
So it sounds like you've made a motion to amend the prior motion that's made by Ms. McClintock.
Yes. So, so I made the motion. Will someone second that?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So at this point, we will adjourn the meeting to.
And sorry, before you adjourn, we have to do one more
Public comment.
public comment
Oh,
period.
public comment. Okay, so is there any additional public comment? We can go for like maybe 5-10 minutes. I know it's getting late, but those of you who have stuck this out the whole time and you would like to make some additional comments, please feel free.
I want to thank you guys for going through it and looking at the safety and the way they were equipped on you know, the fire and like what you were talking about, their people being knowledgeable and how many people they're going to have on staff. That was my biggest problem. 3 people aren't enough to run that place. But I do appreciate what I'm trying to say, but I do appreciate that you guys thought of the county, and I thank you.
Ms. Gay, before you go, Ms. Gay, tell me your first name again. Thank you.
Anybody else feeling the desire to comment? Yep.
Tori Apperson again. I just wanted to say that in listening to the sheriff talking, he doesn't quite let any of you know that on the Pershing side, there's 4 sheriffs, and they go from what we call Grass Valley, Imlay, Unionville, all 4 of them. That's it. And they don't your guys don't cross that county line. It's very rare that they do. And so the other thing that I didn't want to mention was that they are not for profit, like our Safe Haven is up there. That is a not for profit. They can make a profit. They also will bring no tax base in to you for anything that happens. Sheriffs, you know, there's no money, so it's all coming out of everybody else's pockets and their taxes to deal for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Linda Sugasa, Safe Haven Wildlife Sanctuary. I did want to say that if tiger preservation was really serious about becoming a real sanctuary, that they should seek out accreditation with the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? It doesn't, okay, sir. Oh, we're good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right, thank you. At this time, we'll adjourn our meeting to July 8th, 2021 at our regularly scheduled time, 5:30 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good
Thank you.
evening.